Greetings, salutations, respect, and love to all my prog rock brethren out there, all you cats and kittens. This one's for you. Oh, yeah. We're continuing with our series of the greatest singles of the 60s. Today, we're going to the summer of love. It's 1967, and there's so much great music. Something was really happening. It was, the summer of love, Haight-Ashbury, hundreds of thousands of hippies descending on the West Coast. But this whole spirit of free love and musical invention spread around the world. And we're going to look at the 12 greatest singles according to me and my childhood, the 45s that we had lying around the house. I'm going to look at the 12 that had the greatest impact on me. And if you stick around to the end, I've got a bonus one. I forgot one yesterday for 1966, and I just had to include it in as much as it is probably the 145 I listened to the most as a kid. This one goes out to Jeff Shilka's sister, Judy. I just found out that Jeff's sister, Judy, left us a year ago yesterday. And so we're going to do this in honor of her. We're going to start with number 12, but first a little background about what else was going on in 1967. You know, you had Apollo 1 killing 3 astronauts on the launch pad. You had the Loving versus Virginia decision the Supreme Court handed down saying that interracial marriage could be legal. You had riots all over the place in the U.S., Milwaukee, Rochester, Buffalo, Minneapolis, Newark, Birmingham. You had the 6-Day War. Billie Jean King won Wimbledon. Thurgood Marshall was the first African-American to be on the Supreme Court. Otis Redding and John Coltrane died. But most importantly, the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, Ohio, fell because the Mothman showed up. So let's make a movie out of that. But yeah. At number 12, 1967. What an amazing year. It's the Hollies and Carrie Ann. Very likely the first hit single to ever utilize steel drums. What a great steel drum solo. This song made it to number 9 in the US, number 3 in the UK. It was written primarily by Tony Hicks and Graham Nash. I guess Alan Clark wrote the middle 8. It was released in May, and apparently the song was written for Marianne Faithfull, which her name's not Carrie Ann, but my sister's is, so that's pretty cool. At number 11, the Rolling Stones, Ruby Tuesday. Just look at that. I mean, what was the A-side? What was the B-side? Let's spend the night together. Are you kidding me? This was an age when A-sides and B-sides got a little convoluted, and record labels played a lot of games with that. They were doing a lot of double-sided stuff. They'd flip the script, and the B-side would turn into the A-side. I've got one on this list later on where the B-side was reissued as an A-side. This was a non-LP track in the UK. Of course, the American label decided to put it on the Between the Buttons LP. It was written by Keith Richards primarily, but Brian Jones plays that alto recorder in there, and it's just amazing. It's really cool. At number 10, The Who, I Can See for Miles. What a great track. This was the song that really, Pete Townsend was disappointed in how this thing performed. It hit number 9 in the U.S. Believe it or not, The Who's only top 10 single in the U.S. Townsend thought this was going to be a huge hit. He thought for sure it was going to be a number 1. He actually shelved it for a year because he wanted to release it at just the right time. It did appear on The Who Sells Out. But apparently this is a track that really motivated Paul McCartney. There were some critics that were saying that this was the heaviest song ever recorded. So McCartney took that as a challenge, and they say Helter Skelter was the direct result of it. At number 9, it starts with the snare hit. Pop. Yeah, what a great, great idea. I mean, how many songs start with a snare hit? Oh man, Light My Fire from the Doors. Uh, yeah, Jose Feliciano had a hit with it the next year, but it's the Doors version that we are celebrating here, primarily written by Robbie Krieger. But you got that great intro, that keyboard intro that Manzarek came up with. And of course, we just mentioned that snare hit that starts the whole thing. This was a really long song. They actually had to cut it down for a singles edit, like they were doing a lot of back in the day. They performed this thing on the Ed Sullivan Show, and they were coached to change the lyrics to some song lyrics there, but Jim Morrison didn't do it, and Ed wouldn't even shake their hands after they were done. They say that the wild, crazy instrumental section is an homage to John Coltrane. I did not know that. That's cool. At number 8, it's the Monkees and Pleasant Valley Sunday. This was a track written by the married couple, Jerry Goffin, and his wife, whom you might have heard of, some chick named Carole King. This was their song about a suburban dissatisfaction. Even though it sounds like a nice, lovely little song, there's a lot of angst built into these lyrics here. Believe it or not, this was the Monkees' 6th single. It appeared on their 4th album. And talking about weird A-sides and B-sides, this thing was backed by Words, which is just an incredible song. Later on, they actually released Words as an A-side with Salesman as the B-side. Once again, it's Mickey Dolenz with a little help from Peter Tork on vocals. Just incredible. What a great song. Number 7. The Association and Windy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had a little band back in Milwaukee back in the late 60s called the Kool-Aids. My sister got to sing one song, and this was her big number. The Association had a bigger hit with Cherish in 1966, even though this hit number 1 also. The lead guitar player, Larry Ramos, actually sang this song. It was written by Ruth Ann Friedman. Apparently she was David Crosby's roommate at the time. She wrote the song. It's just incredible. I love it. It's so fresh and breezy, and the Association were fantastic. Sunshine pop, I guess they call them. Hey, if we're talking about the summer of love, we got to talk about Gray Slick and Jefferson Airplane. Somebody to Love is the single that really got me going. I could have picked White Rabbit, but I really did prefer the harder charging nature of this song. It was actually written by Grace Slick's brother-in-law, Darby Slick. I guess Grace and Darby were in a band called The Great Society, so they brought this song over from that band. Both White Rabbit and Somebody to Love were on that Surrealistic Pillow album. It's just amazing. Hippies Unite. Unbelievable. What a great, great band Jefferson Airplane was. I need to talk more about them on the channel. At number 5, arguably the first prog song ever, it's Whiter Shade of Pale from Procol Harum. This was written by Keith Reed and Gary Brooker. Years later, Matthew Fisher had his name added to the songwriting credits after an extended legal battle there. This was released May 12, 1967, and you know that keyboard part, it harkens back to Bach. It's not a total lifting of Bach, but it sure does sound like Air on a G string to me. It's a great track. It hit number 5 in the US, hit number 1 in the UK. Is it the very first prog song? I think it probably is. At number 4, here's a great track, Incense and Peppermints by the Strawberry Alarm Clock. This was a West Coast band. They used to call themselves The Sixpence. They actually released the B-side of this as the A-side, which was the Birdman of Alcatraz. And as a kid, I used to listen to that song probably even more than Incense and Peppermints. It's a cool track, but they changed the name of the band to Strawberry Alarm Clock. They flipped the A-side and the B-side. But here's a little side note here. Guy named Ed King was in the band. He probably wrote the majority of this song, but he didn't get songwriting credit, which is really kind of kind of crappy, but he got his revenge because a couple years later he joined a little band called Lynyrd Skynyrd. How about that, huh? Number 3, Alex Chilton and the Box Tops, The Letter. Oh, yeah, that airplane sound going all the way through that track. I guess the producer wanted to get rid of that airplane sound. He didn't like it, but Alex Chilton did. He was coached into singing this thing. What an amazing voice he had. He was a youngster when they did this. Joe Cocker did a cover version, but it's just incredible. I guess the Box Tops were originally called the DeVilles. But when this record came out, they changed the name of the band. Also notable is this is a really short song. It's less than 2 minutes. It's like 1:58. But my little kid brain absolutely loved it at number 2. This was a rough one. I wanted to put this at number 1 so bad. It's Itchycoo Park from the Small Faces, written by Steve Marriott and Ronnie Lane. This was one of the first songs that you ever heard that flanger, where they do that flange drum thing before the chorus kicks in. My little brain was exploding. I'm like, what am I even hearing here? I guess it was a mechanical flanger. They had to go through a whole lot of tape permutations to get that sound. Now you can just press a button and get it. But at the time, it was really cool. And it's just a phenomenal song. It was released in August. It only hit number 16 in the US, but it did way better in the UK, where it hit number 3. Produced by Glenn Johns. He was the one that figured out all that flangey stuff, way ahead of his time. What a great producer he is. But there can only be one number 1, the one song that I played over and over and over and over and over. It's Happy Together from the Turtles. Yeah, these guys didn't write any of their A-sides. It was written by Gary Bonner and Alan Gordon, released in February 14th, 1967. And I just love how it's so dark and bleak. And then the chorus hits and it's so bright and shiny. And then you've got that amazing brass arrangement. That was done courtesy the bass player Chip Douglas, whom we had actually heard a little bit about Chip Douglas without mentioning him earlier. He produced Pleasant Valley Sunday for the Monkees, which is kind of a weird little side note. Just an incredible song. I guess these two guys that wrote it shopped it around forever and a day, and they couldn't find any takers. The Turtles were real smart to latch onto that song because it was obviously their biggest hit, and it's number 1 for 1967 for me. Yeah, those were the 12 that I was listening to back then when I was 5. I promised you a bonus one, and I'm going to give it to you right now. I missed one for 1966. A big whiff on my part, because this was, like I said earlier, probably the song I listened to the most. It's They're Coming to Take Me Away. Ha ha, they're coming. Just the most ridiculous song in the history of the world, but I wore that thing out. I think I had like 4 or 5 different copies of that 45 growing up as a kid because I listened to it over and over and over. And then the flip side is the song backwards is just stupid, is ridiculous. Napoleon the 14th, whoever that guy was. It generally derided as the worst song ever written, and that's probably why I love it so much. Anyway, that is my wrap up of 1967, man. The summer of love. It was a great time to be alive, but 2022 ain't a bad time to be alive either. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at 1968. That's going to be pretty exciting. We got lots of cool stuff on the horizon here on the channel. So thank you so much for joining me. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.